What if a once thriving vacation paradise became a crumbling fortress? Imagine a place where the serene sound of waves morphs into the terrifying roar of explosions. That's the chilling reality faced in Crimea today, where military bases are crumbling, ships are sinking, and the famed Crimean Bridge is no longer invulnerable. The Russian foothold here is collapsing, and a stirring uprising of 1.5 million people is bringing despair like never before. But what could this shift mean for the region and its future? As whispers of rebellion echo through the streets, fears ripple among the populace. Citizens hastily pack their belongings while military personnel quietly withdraw. This exodus marks a critical turning point, heavily influenced by Ukraine's relentless offensive. Just days ago, on August 28, a long-range radar system, an S-400 unit, specifically Class 91N6E, was rendered useless. The once reliable guardian of the skies is now silent, leaving Crimea vulnerable. The night has morphed into a waking nightmare, where the distant sounds of explosions disturb the uneasy sleep of residents in Simferopol and Vardis. Sirens wail, orders for safety are shouted, and then silence envelopes the area again, but it is a silence laced with anxiety. Each passing day highlights Crimean reality. The peninsula's illusion of safety is fading swiftly under the weight of constant threats. With the radars down, Ukraine's drones now roam freely. Missiles pass unhindered over the once secure territory. The Black Sea Fleet finds itself under severe duress as well. Ukrainian forces have already struck a Ban M-class warship loaded with missiles. With the Russian ships now retreating towards safer havens, desperation sinks deep. This turmoil doesn't just affect military maneuvers, it's spilling into ordinary life. The Ministry of Information in Sevastopol issues warnings of prolonged disruptions to mobile internet, impacting communication and daily transactions. Cash shortages grow severe, with citizens sometimes forced to travel long distances simply to withdraw cash. Supermarkets are plagued by payment failures, leaving shelves empty and anxiety mounting. Fuel shortages have reached critical levels, with shortages of AI-95 gasoline becoming a frequent headline. A temporary logistical glitch, officials say, but deep charges from Ukraine's air raids have devastated not just Crimea, but the entire energy grid of Russia. Reports as of August 2025 indicated 4 major refineries closed, causing a staggering loss of 44.3 million tons in refining output and expected production drops in the coming year. Prices climb in desperation, reaching an alarming 69.95 rubles per liter. Yet the impacts reverberate brighter than just rising costs. The tourism sector, once vibrant under the shining sun, faces an unprecedented collapse. Crimea was once a beloved summer destination, welcoming millions to its breathtaking beaches and scenic palm trees. Annual tourist counts had peaked at around 6 million, just prior to Russia's annexation altering the landscape forever. Post-2014, international tourism dwindled. Only slightly compensated by Russian visits that were never as greatly abundant as proclaimed. The global pandemic further devastated any remaining hope for recovery. By 2020, visitor numbers plummeted to 2 million, and now, as fears of attacks loom large and beaches lie desolate even in peak season, reports reveal an astonishing drop. 80% of potential visitors are steering clear of the once bustling streets of Sevastopol. As the residents prepare to leave, and tourist numbers dwindle into oblivion, the local economy reels from the impact. Businesses tied to tourism crumble under the mounting pressures, while Ukrainian intelligence reports contribute to the exodus. Russian citizens are avoiding Crimea out of fear, seeing not a refuge, but a potential death trap. Real estate prices have plummeted too. Just after annexation, aggressive promotional tactics inflated property values by about 30%. However, with significant international sanctions crushing foreign investments, that brief spike came crashing back down. Many fear that should control shift back to Ukraine, their property deeds acquired post-2014 could dissolve into nothingness. This storm is far from over. As the narrative unfolds, the chilling truth emerges: Crimea's grip on Russian identity is slipping, not just in military might but within the very fabric of its societal psyche. If families, including military ones, quietly abandon ship, it signals more than just impending turmoil. It reveals a community grappling with unbearable fears. A poignant question lingers: will Crimea ever return to the vibrant paradise it once was, or is it too late? In Crimea, the silence of radars has created a chilling atmosphere of uncertainty. As the decision-making process within the Russian command drags on, fears intensify about their ability to respond effectively. Loss of radar capabilities is a harbinger of doom. It signals a perilous decline in the peninsula's defensive coverage. Without detection systems, missiles may evade interception, and drones can silently infiltrate. But the turmoil runs deeper than air defense. The Russian Navy faces unprecedented challenges. Ukraine has struck a Ban M-class warship laden with caliber missiles, sending it limping back to base. Each blow reduces the missile threats from the sea and strips the Russian fleet of its vital maneuverability. Surveillance drones relentlessly patrol, forcing the Black Sea Fleet into remote havens. No longer can ships linger near Crimea without contending with threats to their survival. This conflict permeates everyday life. Authorities in Sevastopol, along with the peninsula's information mouthpiece, distribute grim warnings about indefinite mobile internet disruptions. These interruptions are not mere inconveniences, they ripple through civilian life, causing chaos in payment systems and ATMs. As the cash flow dwindles, residents must embark on treacherous journeys beyond city limits just to withdraw funds. Supermarket cash registers are paralyzed as payment systems crash. Compounding the crisis is the lack of AI-95 gasoline, creating a burgeoning fuel dilemma. While officials label these issues as temporary logistical snags, reality paints a stark picture. Ukraine's precision drone attacks have rattled not just the confines of Crimea but have sent shockwaves through Russia's entire energy network. By August 2025, over 4 significant refineries stand shut down, with 13.5% of the national processing capability rendered inactive. This leads to a staggering loss of 44.3 million tons in production and a forecasted drop to a mere 267 million tons in 2024. Prices have soared alongside the chaos, with AI-95 gasoline in Crimea spiking to 69.95 rubles per liter. The malaise extends beyond spiraling fuel costs. Entire sectors, from tourism to real estate, watch their allure fade. Crimea, once a sun-drenched paradise with palm trees and pebble beaches, is becoming unrecognizable. Before turmoil struck, the region enjoyed 5 to 6 million tourists annually. However, in the wake of conflict and instability, this once thriving tourist haven is quickly losing its luster. What does the future hold for the once coveted jewel of the Black Sea? Can the foundations of this beleaguered economy withstand the storm? With more questions looming on the horizon, uncertainty grips the heart of Crimea. Previously, we saw how Crimea's once thriving economy is collapsing under the weight of destroyed refineries and soaring fuel prices. Now, the peninsula's famed charm is fading. Its palm-lined shores and pebble beaches, once a dazzling haven, are haunted by silence and empty resorts. But what turned Crimea from a bustling hotspot into a ghost town? Before the annexation, Crimea was a magnet for millions of tourists each year, drawing 5 to 6 million visitors on average. In 2013 alone, about 6 million tourists walked those warm shores. Then everything changed. When control shifted in 2014, international travelers vanished almost overnight. Russia's tourists partially filled the void, or so it seemed. Russian authorities boasted 5 million visitors in 2015, but independent reports suggested the real number was closer to half, around 3 million. Then came the pandemic, an invisible storm that battered worldwide travel. Crimea's fragile tourism took a painful blow as borders closed and fears grew. Despite brief surges in local Russian tourism, restrictions and economic troubles squeezed visitor numbers down to roughly 2 million by 2020. But it wasn't just a virus that triggered the crisis. Fears of attacks and the looming threat of war cast a dark shadow. The peninsula's calm vanished like smoke. Beaches stayed eerily empty during summer, hotels saw cancellations skyrocket, and hotels once packed with laughter and life now echoed with silence. A staggering 80% of Russians avoided tours planned for Sevastopol, and over a third of bookings vanished into thin air. What turned the once crowded streets into ghostly avenues? Was it just fear, or the chilling reality of what now lurks overhead? Official voices still insist tourists keep coming. Yet leaked intelligence and satellite photos tell another story. Tourist numbers have plummeted by 50 to 60%. The favorite getaway spots of the past now struggle to attract a single visitor. This mass exodus doesn't just paint a bleak picture, it strangles local businesses tied to tourism, leaving them gasping for survival. Why are Russians turning their backs on Crimea? Ukrainian defense sources reveal an unsettling truth: folks refuse to vacation here because the peninsula's air defenses, once thought invincible, are failing. The constant drone surveillance, the shadow of missile strikes, and growing risks make every stay a gamble with danger. The sinking confidence in the region's safety is pushing residents and tourists alike into uneasy flight. And as Crimea empties, its once vibrant spirit fades, swallowed by a growing void of silence and fear. But what will happen when those who still dare to stay face the next unexpected strike? The delicate balance is teetering on the edge. Who will be left once the silence breaks? Previously, we saw how the collapse of tourism has shaken Crimea's local economy. Residents and visitors alike have lost faith in the peninsula's safety, driven by shaky air defenses and persistent threats. Now, another looming danger darkens the horizon, one that strikes at the heart of Crimea's very infrastructure and future. The Crimean Bridge, a crucial lifeline turned fragile military supply route, hangs by a thread. Since the occupation began, this bridge has been a key artery for Russia's forces, yet its vulnerability has been exposed time and again. For tourists, it's no longer a symbol of safe passage but a glaring red flag, and ever-present risk shadowing every visit. Beyond this, the real estate market tells a grim tale. Right after annexation, Russia pushed hard to align Crimean property prices with its own standards. Government workers, pensioners, and investors were lured by promises and incentives. At first, demand surged, sparking a remarkable 30% jump in housing prices. But this bubble soon burst. International sanctions slammed the brakes. Foreign investments dried up almost completely. By 2016 and 2017, prices stalled or even dipped slightly. Official Russian figures claimed apartment prices held steady or inched up in rubles, but when converted to foreign currencies, they lost ground. The grand vision of Crimea rivaling the Turkish Riviera evaporated as tourism withered. Without the flood of visitors, the real estate market lost its pulse. The war's outbreak in 2022 plunged the crisis deeper. The attack on the Saki airbase and the explosion on the Crimean Bridge only reinforced fears that the peninsula was no safe haven. By year's end, property listings on Russian websites had surged by 40 to 50%. But buyers were nowhere to be found. From 2023 through 2025, the flood of homes for sale is expected to keep rising. Prices are predicted to fall by at least 20% in rubles. Why the hesitation? Many potential buyers fear that if Ukraine regains control, deeds signed after 2014 won't hold any legal weight. This looming legal uncertainty fuels panic selling. Though official numbers remain scarce, the spike in property listings paints a clear picture: a market in freefall, gripped by fear and uncertainty. Opportunists might snap up bargains, betting Crimea's future will remain tied to Russia. Others only participate because of governmental support. But for most, the message is clear: Crimea's stability is crumbling, and its real estate is becoming a ticking time bomb. What happens when a place once seen as a fortress begins to unravel from within? When the very ground beneath the feet of residents and soldiers alike feels shaky? The story of Crimea is no longer just about conflict, it's about a region at the edge of collapse. And the question is, who will be left holding the pieces? Summary: the sense of security in Crimea is crumbling, driving Russian families, including military personnel, to flee. The once promised stability of the region is now overshadowed by panic and uncertainty as the war reshapes the landscape. Would you stay in a place where the ground beneath you trembles with explosions? As the heart of Crimea, once a fortress for Russia, unravels, a wave of fear sweeps over this strategic peninsula. The Russian military presence is more fragile than ever. Families are packing up and leaving in secret, their eyes darting anxiously as they slip from what was once considered a safe haven. In just a few years, from 2022 to 2025, the real estate market plummeted. Russian families put their properties up for sale in a frenzy. Buyers, filled with dread, hesitated. What if the land they purchased, marked by deeds obtained since 2014, was claimed back by Ukraine? Panic selling became the anthem of the day, as listings on Russian real estate sites climbed. The decline of Russia's presence in Crimea isn't just a matter of bricks and mortar, it's a psychological unraveling. As the imminent threat looms overhead, military families packed their lives into vehicles, often escorted by military personnel to evade prying eyes. They knew that staying any longer wasn't just a risk, it was a desperate gamble. After annexing Crimea in 2014, the Kremlin flooded the region with ethnic Russians, aiming to cement their hold. Numbers rolled in: 67.9% were Russian, 15.7% Ukrainian, and 10.6% Crimean Tatar. Those figures served as political leverage, a facade of permanence. But the ground shifted once more with the full-scale war in 2022, shaking the foundation of Kremlin's ambitions. Now, the sounds of sirens, the distant rumble of missiles, and the looming threat of drone warfare pierced the air. Families were no longer safe. Reports indicated that nearly all command-level officers of the Black Sea Fleet had moved their loved ones out. The urgency of the situation cracked through the veneer of security that had enveloped Crimea for years, revealing stark reality: this land was no longer a fortress but a danger zone. As these families hastened their escape, driven by panic and fear, one question lingered: who would be left behind in a land that had transformed from sanctuary to perilous uncertainty? The tides in Crimea are changing, and this might just be the harbinger of something even graver on the horizon. Previously, we saw how relentless attacks by unmanned aerial and naval vehicles, along with growing partisan resistance, pushed Crimean families past their breaking points. The underground network known as ATSH revealed that nearly all senior officers of the Black Sea Fleet evacuated their loved ones from the peninsula. But what does this mass withdrawal really mean? Is Crimea slipping from Russia's grasp faster than anyone expected? These evacuations were not casual farewells. Families were moved under strict military protocols, hidden in plain sight along secret routes, shrouded in silence, and guarded by armed escorts. Even air defense personnel have sent their families away to the southern military district, a safer zone far from the escalating threats. Military leaves have been cancelled entirely, with units stuck on constant alert around Sevastopol's port and nearby bays. The nights are filled with tense patrols, some in civilian clothes, while weapons and radar arrays are hidden beneath camouflage nets. Equipment is shuffled to remote spots, trying to vanish from prying satellite eyes. But it's not just soldiers who are fleeing. A quiet exodus of civilians has begun. Unofficial estimates suggest around 100,000 Russian citizens have abandoned Crimea in recent months. Those left behind simmer with frustration and fear. Long-standing critics of Moscow's rule, especially among the Crimean Tatars, condemned the escalating militarization. They say the peninsula is losing its soul, becoming less free, less diverse, and more unlivable by the day. Take Irina, a 35-year-old from Yalta. She sums it up with chilling clarity: there is no freedom. No choices. We are not safe anymore. It's like a dark joke, living a life no one wanted but we are forced to endure. Her words echo a growing despair among residents. Even though the air raid sirens have become a grim routine, blaring at all hours, their presence doesn't mean people have accepted this as normal. Instead, every shrill wail cuts deeper, a constant reminder that peace has fled Crimea. What happens when the defenders lose faith in the land they're supposed to protect? How long can a place survive when its protectors and its people are quietly fleeing? The shadows lengthen over Crimea, and a storm is gathering, one that might change everything. Will the peninsula hold on or finally break free? The answer lies just beyond the horizon. In a land where hope fades like a distant memory, the people of Crimea are gripped by despair. The once familiar sounds of life have transformed into an unending cacophony of sirens, marking sleepless nights and relentless anxiety. We live with the constant fear of a possible attack, a resident from Yalta confesses, echoing the sentiment of many. The shadows of uncertainty loom large, casting a pall over the lives of the elderly and children alike. Amidst this chaos, Igor, an 85-year-old retired philosophy professor near the Nakhimov Naval Academy, paints a vivid picture of his nightly ordeal. Every night, something explodes, he recalls. As the piercing wail of the sirens fills the air, he hastily gathers his dog and retreats to the basement. Sleep eludes them, a haunting reminder that peace is a distant dream. But the war's influence extends beyond the eerie silence that follows an explosion. The streets buzz with military convoys, trucks laden with ammunition, a stark reminder of the conflict's proximity. Meanwhile, massive billboards dominate the landscape, beckoning young men with enticing promises. Want to work in the fresh air? Dream of owning a home by the sea? These slogans might lure the ambitious, but a grim reality lurks beneath the surface. A lucrative contract offers little protection from the grim fate that awaits many on the front lines. Families grow anxious as their loved ones sign up, knowing that some may never return. In this environment, ideology has overshadowed the law. Dissent is silenced, with many facing criminal prosecution merely for expressing their views. According to independent watchdog OVD Info, political repression has spiked since the annexation in 2014, with countless individuals charged under vague laws that equate free speech with treachery. The charge of discrediting the armed forces has emerged as a sword that cuts through the fabric of society. As the walls close in and hope dwindles, one must wonder, what is it like to survive in a place where safety has become an illusion? The desolation of Crimea envelopes its inhabitants, a daily battle against fear and the relentless march of conflict. With each passing day, their strength wanes, leaving behind shattered dreams and a haunting silence that no siren can breach. What will it take for the people to reclaim their sense of security? Will they rise against the tide of despair or succumb to it completely? The answers remain obscured in the shadows. In recent years, a dark cloud has loomed over Crimea, where freedom of expression has faced relentless suppression. As political dissenters have been silenced, the atmosphere of fear penetrates every corner of society. With a staggering total of 1,275 administrative cases relating to charges of discrediting the armed forces, the peninsula has become the foremost battleground for oppression in all of Russia. Behind these numbers lie shattered lives, suppressed voices, and fractured families. Legal defenders of pro-Ukrainian activists suffer under a gauntlet of threats and intimidation, often being forcibly removed from their profession. The concept of justice has devolved into a mere facade. The law is a tool wielded for convenience, devoid of its protective purpose. An invisible paramilitary force known among locals as outlaws hunts down any sign of sympathies toward Ukraine. In this climate of unease, individuals are not safe from consequence even in their digital spaces. Social media profiles are monitored, casual conversations are scrutinized, and even the choice of music can provoke suspicion. Playing Ukrainian folk melodies may be perceived as an act of rebellion, an offense that invites retaliation. The stakes are high, far beyond mere fines or detentions. Psychological intimidation is part of the arsenal, where those apprehended are coerced into filming degrading apology videos. These confessions, often drenched in tears and shame, circulate widely on social media, serving as cautionary tales. They echo a chilling message: conformity is mandatory. Consider the case of Ibrahim Osmanov, a youth sports coach. In April, he was arrested simply for painting his garage door in the blue and gold colors that echo the Ukrainian flag. The authorities deemed this an offense, claiming it incited discomfort among residents. Osmanov's public degradation, forced to apologize on camera, transformed him from a simple coach into an unwitting symbol of warning for the community. While superficially, life in Crimea may appear to be improving, economic indicators tell a more troubling tale. Residents still find themselves grappling with significant disparities between their living standards and those of people in Moscow or St. Petersburg, as uncertainties loom large over the future. What is ostensibly progress is, in truth, a thin veneer covering deeper turmoil. In a land once known for its vivacious culture and stunning beauty, the pervasive fear has crippled both individual freedom and the broader economy. Rising tensions have turned daily life into a cautious game of compliance, where even the simplest actions can carry weighty consequences. Will the spirit of resistance continue to spark amid the shadows, or will it be extinguished completely under the guise of control? Previously, we saw how a once hopeful sports coach in Crimea transformed into a symbol of warning, an unsettling sign that ordinary life there had turned into a minefield of political tension. Despite some visible improvements, the real economy remained far behind Russia's wealthier cities. Now, the cracks beneath the surface are growing deeper. Imagine walking down the narrow streets of Crimea's towns, freshly paved roads and new apartment blocks hint at progress. Yet, the air carries a bitter scent of struggle. The war's price spikes have squeezed household budgets tighter than ever. Basic goods now cost more, forcing families to make harsh choices. While some sectors like food production, agriculture, and alcohol find ways to thrive amid chaos, most locals watch from the sidelines, unable to keep up. One unexpected story rises from the vineyards, Crimea's wine industry. With the European Union slapping sanctions and nearly halting wine exports to Russia, local wines suddenly found a spotlight. Shelves once packed with foreign bottles emptied, and Crimean wines took center stage. Vineyard owners smile as land prices skyrocket, some report a five-fold increase per square meter over 4 years. This surge is driving a fresh wave of investment. But here's the twist: rising costs are squeezing out small, traditional producers. The wine legacy, rich and centuries old, is slipping into the hands of big money players. What began as a chance for Crimea to shine is turning into a story of widening gaps and lost heritage. For many, the prestige of local wines is now just a distant dream, seen only as expensive labels behind supermarket glass. The gulf between the haves and have-nots widens, some reap profits while others struggle to buy essentials. This economic divide mirrors a deeper reality: Crimea is no longer Russia's secure stronghold or a summer paradise. It's slipping away, slowly and inexorably. What happens when a land famed for its beauty and bounty becomes a battlefield of survival and inequality? Will the rising tide of wealth for a few crush the hopes of many? And as the grip on Crimea loosens, who will be left standing when the dust finally settles? In the shadows of Crimea, an unseen force operates relentlessly. This paramilitary organization, often referred to as outlaws, systematically hunts down anyone who shows any sign of support for Ukraine. A casual social media post or even a conversation can lead to consequences. Individuals are constantly on edge, fearing that their taste in music could be deemed offensive. Those who are arrested face not just confinement or penalties, they experience psychological torture. There's a horrifying method of intimidation at play. Detainees are coerced into filming degrading apology videos, which are then shared widely, serving as chilling warnings to others. Imagine being forced to bow in shame, tears streaming as you express regret for a harmless act, like showing pride for your heritage. A particularly striking incident occurred near Simferopol, where a children's sports coach named Ibrahim Osmanov was detained for painting his garage door in blue and gold, colors reminiscent of the Ukrainian flag. His public apology was filmed and broadcasted, transforming him from a sports coach into a cautionary tale for others. Although life in Crimea presents a facade of improvements, the economic reality remains stark. The average citizen struggles to achieve the standards of living seen in Moscow or St. Petersburg. While some sectors find ways to thrive amid the chaos, like agriculture and the alcohol industry, the majority tighten their belts as prices rise. The war has exacerbated these challenges. Basic necessities are becoming harder to afford, leading many families to feel the strain. However, amid this adversity, an unexpected industry has surged: winemaking. As the European Union imposed sanctions and halted wine imports, local winemakers have found new opportunities. The absence of foreign brands has led to a newfound appreciation for Crimean wines, prompting a spike in their market value. Vineyard land prices have soared over fivefold in just 4 years due to this demand, but the brewers of Crimean wine face mounting challenges as small producers are pushed out by wealthier competitors. While a few prosper, for many, wines once thought to be a luxury are now out of reach. These developments paint a stark picture. Crimea is no longer the fortified stronghold it once was. The peninsula is gradually losing its grip on Russia, symbolizing the breakdown not merely of a military campaign but of a deeper systemic failure. Military setbacks, blind spots, and public panic contribute to this unraveling. With every alarm bell echoing in the night, each vacant hotel room, and each truck moving out, Crimea is whispering a farewell to Moscow. The question remains, how much longer can the Kremlin maintain its authority when its very presence is crumbling from within? Crimea's future hangs precariously, teetering on the edge of change. As we witness these monumental shifts, one thing is clear: the atmosphere is charged with uncertainty, and every moment could tip the scales toward freedom or oppression. The air grows thick with anticipation. What will happen next? Will Crimea emerge from this shadow, or will it sink further into despair? The answers lie in the unfolding story that both captivates and terrifies.